All right, so there you go. One, two, three. There you go. Hello, everybody. This is the captain speaking. Rafael Chacín, as known as El Capitán Rafucho, and welcome to the venture. And right now, let's give it up for a special episode because tomorrow on Sunday football, because this is not the NFL games that we want to watch that, but also it's gonna be like a biggest rivalry in New Year's sports. Because at baseball they got Yankees versus Mets, at basketball they got Knicks versus Nets, but in football they got Giants versus Jets. And this is when they're talking about the rivalry, and of course we're gonna talk about the keys, but about the match between New York Giants versus New York Jets. And right now we have some special guests right now. You might know as the podcast have two Giant Goofball podcasts because I've been following them since day one, and they brought a lot of good takes for the New York Giants and a lot of things out of the NFL. So let's give another round of applause for my man, Drew, for the two Giant Goofball podcasts. How's it going?
Good, good, good. Appreciate it. Now you're giving me expectations to live up to. People are going to expect some good things now.
All right, so let's check them out. All right, so right now, tomorrow at 1 p.m., the New York Giants are going to face against New York Jets. Now, it's going to be the last time because the last time they just played at 2019. Now, 4 years later, they just went out to play against the New York Jets, which is totally insane about it. So there's some things that we're talking about, which is the offense is still struggling and they needs to build it up for identity. And searching on defense, they have like an edge right now because the Jets have the worst offense in the NFL on third down and the red zone. The Giants just went 202 minutes and 42 seconds without scoring an offensive touchdown. The times are really tight, but along with the Titans for the fewest touchdowns scored this season at 8. Jets are coming out for the masterpiece against the Eagles when they just forced Jalen Hurts into a 3 interceptions and Philadelphia into a 4 turnovers in the upset win. And for the Giants, they just sacked Washington quarterback Sam Howell 6 times last week, and they just shut it down for the Commanders for most at the game. So right now, let's talk about for the New York Giants, who going to be resolved against for the New York Jets because the Giants had only 2 wins and 5 losses. So let's explain it about how can we revert the situation, Mr. Drew.
No, and the big thing is just that the Giants, for those who watch on a regular basis, know that they've had a ton of injury issues, especially at the offensive line position. Second team All Pro left tackle Andrew Thomas has been out since week one. JMS, John Michael Schmitz, the rookie center who's touted as the best center to come out of this draft, has been out the last few weeks there. And, it goes on and on to the point where they're literally, calling up Mr. Straight off the couch, Justin Pugh at that point to start left tackle because that's how bad the situation got. Because even their left tackle backup, Josh Azudu, who was supposed to be one of their starting guards potentially, also got injured as well. Ben Bredesen's had the concussion issues. Evan Neal was out last week. I mean, there's not a spot on this offensive line that's been healthy. So it's hard to get an offense going when you don't have protection. And, that's been the issue there. And obviously now we deal with the injury also to Daniel Jones the last couple weeks there, which is obviously the big story in Giants Nation right now is, is the team better off with Tyrod? Is Daniel Jones the answer? I mean, starting to get one of those like you're on this side or that side kind of arguments on those now.
Yeah, exactly. And let's just have it up for the right now because I know the internet is still crashing down, but I know they're still struggling about the offense, the defense, but I know they're still about the team, but about the quarterback Daniel Jones. I know they just have only 2 wins, but I know this happened like the pass offense and the pass defense. So for the Jets, Wilson has shown improvement for his footwork and the decision making. And for that reason, because we all know about the debut of Aaron Rodgers for the Jets, but they are just injured about the first season at the first game, and then they just went out for Wilson. But for the Giants, the run defense, I mean, they've been suspected for the run to the season, allowing like 137 yards per rushing. But the last week, they just held about the opponent, and the linebackers, Micah McFadden and Bobby Accorda, they flying around. I mean, the run defense and the run offense, I mean, they took out about a lot of edge here going for the Jets right now. But with the case of the special teams, they have issues returning punts with 2 muffs last week. And they're going to have a new returner back then with Gunnar Alslecki. And the Jets are going down for the better coverage players and just Hardy. But Graham Gano just missed a 42-yarder. And Greg Circular has stabilized the kitten situation.
Yeah, I mean, I'll trust Graham Gano. He's got the resume to do it. So, kicker's going to miss occasionally. You just don't want to see it too often, and as you mentioned, the running defense issues, that's on both teams. That's one thing I don't think is talked about enough as far as the Jets. I mean, the Jets are giving up 135.2 yards on the ground per game right now. They're amazing against the pass, but the Jets defense is very suspect against the run. So I'm thinking you're going to see a pretty healthy dose of Saquon Barkley in this game. You're going to see a healthy dose of design runs for Tyrod Taylor since he will be the starting quarterback here for a third week in a row. And you're going to see much more of a safe offense, a dink and dunk, get Darren Waller involved, get Saquon out in the flat at that point, short routes at that point with the slot receivers. And then occasionally take it with the deep one to Jalen Hyatt or Darius Slayton at that point. But for the most part, I think the Giants are going to play a very safe offense. This is, we talked about our show. It's one of the rare games that I'll sit there and say a field goal is enough. And it's weird to say that because you want the touchdown. Listen, I want a touchdown every single drive the Giants get the ball. But this is the game that if you can just squeak out a couple of field goals per quarter, you're probably going to win this game. Because neither offense is an offense that scores a lot of points. The Giants, prior to last week, I had to look to see what the new rankings were. We were on pace to be the 20th worst offense in points per game in the entire history of the NFL. That's how bad the offense has been. Wasn't even 10 points a game. Well, the Jets right now are already averaging 8 points a game. They're not exactly lighting up the scoreboard either. So I think the key to this, and this is for both teams really, is whoever plays a simple, sound offense gets the ball rolling, gets some points on the board, doesn't do anything crazy to make the offense, be the reason why they lose, is probably going to be the victor in this game.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, one of the another topics that we're talking about for the Giants versus Jets, which is on tomorrow Sunday at 1 p.m. So right now they have an injury report. So right now, so this is very interesting because what I just saw for the social media, because Brian DeBall, he cannot answer if Daniel Jones will be able to play the game this season, because this is so much different how he answered the question for previous weeks. And
Mm-hmm.
the point that Daniel Jones will miss like the third consecutive game for the Sunday, and they're gonna replace with Tyron Taylor. I mean, he just missed a week 6 against the Buffalo Bills, and the week 7 against the Washington Commanders with a neck injury. I mean, he suffered about of the loss in the Miami Dolphins with his neck snap after they had not a bit sack right now, because I know that Daniel Jones, the quarterback for 27 years old, had together like a disappointment campaign to drop a luck for only one win and 4 losses under him under the center to begin this year. Because of the slightest neck injury, the different one, and Taylor failure while Jones was sidelined, he's landed the Giants with a 1-1 record over the past 2 games. And Taylor has more receiving than Jones at more than 479 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and completed with 64 completion at the percentage of the past 2 games combined. So the question is, if Daniel Jones is jury, it's gonna be like a huge opportunity to put Tyron Taylor as a starter quarterback.
I think it's a combination of two things. It's an opportunity for Tyrod Taylor, of course. We got to keep in mind his age at this point in his career, and say no one's going to probably look at him as a free agent next offseason and go, okay, this is the guy. Maybe give this guy another shot to be a starting quarterback and build around him. But I could see him going to a team and he's a bridge quarterback for a rookie quarterback next year and getting the chance to start for a little while there. But the second part of this is the Daniel Jones factor. It's not, does Tyrod Taylor being more successful the last couple of weeks make him look good? It's also, does that make Daniel Jones look bad? Does it make it go where we go, okay, hold on. This is the same offense, the same line that Daniel Jones could even get 100 yards in passing some games. And now all of a sudden, the offense is moving better. Don't get me wrong. The offense is not, this is not the greatest show on turf by any means. This is not that kind of thing. But you can see the last 2 weeks, the ball is moving more. The offense is rolling a little better, and that unfortunately also reflects badly upon Daniel Jones. Now, there's other factors you can always throw into it. Saquon Barkley's been back the last 2 weeks. Obviously, that affects things. But you can also make the case that the offensive line has gotten worse in the last 2 weeks to the injuries of Josh Azudo and Evan Neal and guys like that as well. God forbid you say the offensive line got worse. He was already playing all backups, but now the backups are getting injured. That's how bad it's gotten. They're hiring guys off the streets. Tyree Phillips was starting at right tackle. Week before that, he was on the Eagles practice squad. Luckily, he was with us last year, so he knows the offense. It wasn't like he was stepping in and having no clue whatsoever is going on. But you're still hiring guys off the streets, literally, and then starting them within a couple of days. And that's multiple guys now. So, like I said, it depends on what school of thought you are, whether or not you want to say, okay, Tyrod's doing better because Saquon's back, or Tyrod's doing better because he's a better quarterback than Daniel Jones is. I err on the side of caution to go onto the latter side myself. I think as a veteran, Tyrod Taylor is reading defenses better. He's seeing oncoming blitzes better than Daniel Jones did. And, last year the question was, is Daniel Jones struggling in certain areas because of lack of talent around him?
Mm-hmm.
They go out this year, they get Jalen Hyatt, they get Darren Waller, they get Paris Campbell, they get, they bring back Shep, they bring back Slayton, they get, all these tools around him at that point. And he regressed this year. Big time.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking about Saquon Barkley, so right now I'm going to share for the screen right now, because this is what Saquon Barkley is just talking about against for the Jets, which is tomorrow at 1 p.m. So let's just check it out. All right, so let's just see what happens. Saquon Barkley talks against Jets, which is on Sunday. I didn't have too great of a game the last time we played a few years ago. That's still on my mind at the time. That's probably one of the lowest moments I had in my career. But you learn from it. That's in the past. It's a new team, and I'm excited for the opportunity to go against that team. So that's kind of like the worst of Saquon Barkley is being like really excited for the Sunday matchup against for the Jets right now because I know that it's gonna be like really interesting about the combo between Saquon Barkley and some of the players that are the feed up or anything, but I mean that Saquon Barkley has very powerful as a running back, and I gotta tell you because Saquon Barkley has really dominated as a running backs. Because if you're talking about Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, but Saquon Barkley has enough power, but sometimes he can struggle like to enter the red zone, everything.
Yeah, he's not a red zone running back. The big issue with him really always has been is that he doesn't always take the hole that's there. He looks for that
Mhm.
home run and doesn't want to take the single. And
Yep.
that's not to say I don't want to make it seem like I'm knocking the guy. He's a great running back, one of the top running backs in the league. No player is perfect. Every player has a flaw or two. That's life. So that's the big flaw with him is that if you're in a position, let's say your first goal on the 5-yard line, he's not going to go take 2-3 yards. He's going to try to bounce outside and may lose a couple yards in the process. Much like, for those of us who had the joy of watching Barry Sanders growing up, he had the same thing. He was never a guy for that position either. The guys who have these athletic gifts, part of what makes them the superstars they are is because in their mind, they're always faster, they're always better, they're always more agile than everybody else in the field. Every so often, they're wrong about that.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, speaking about for the rivalry between Jets versus Giants, which is definitely huge for the New York sports because I mentioned about this earlier because the New York has a very different sports rivals. Because if we're talking about the New York Knicks versus Brooklyn Nets, that's basketball, and the baseball, they got Yankees versus Mets. But the football is very different between New York Giants versus New York Jets. And that's a whole lot of history about for this rivalry between Giants versus Jets. So talking about the Giants versus Jets, one of those games that all these Giants fans they remember out about all these historical moments between Giants versus Jets, between Eli Manning, Victor Cruz. I mean, those are real and amazing. Those are amazing players. But in this rivalry that we just look at it to everything about it, so they've been playing like 14 times. And the Giants had led the series at 8-6 because the first time it was on November 1st at 70. Then the New York Giants had just won against the New York Jets. And the last time they just played it, it was on November 10th of 2019. It became like 4 years, but after losing against New York Jets, I mean, they have an opportunity to take off their revenge. And for that reason, for all the Giants fans that are watching us, I mean, there are some amazing players that we look at the rivalry. They had Eli Manning, Victor Cruz. So my question is, between the rivalry between New York Giants versus New York Jets, what moment that defined the whole rivalry between Giants versus Jets?
So I'm going to give you a little bit of an oddball answer here that most people will never answer this way, this question. Taking you back to 2003. 2003, the New York Giants were one of the worst teams in the league by far.
Wow.
In fact, they were potential guys to get the first overall pick in the 2004 NFL draft. They did not get it. And the main reason why is because they won a very close game towards the end of the season against the New York Jets. Now, remember who the first overall pick in 2004 was? Eli Manning.
That's right, Eli Manning.
If it wasn't for the Jets not being able to beat the Giants that year when everybody else was able to beat us, we would never have had to make that trade. we would have
Wow.
had Eli Manning straight up right off the bat, just like him and Archie wanted from the get-go. And that means we would have kept the picks we had, the extra picks. Now keep in mind, they got a very good, I believe, Pro Bowl caliber kicker. I cannot remember the name off the top of my head of who they of the kicker they had with the Chargers for many, many years during the Rivers era, but he was one of the picks. The other one was Mr. Sean Merriman. Beast of a player, at least for a few years. He didn't have a long career, but he had a nice short burst of a 4 or 5 year stretch where he was really, really good. Imagine Sean Merriman being on that Giants defense. I hold a grudge.
Mm,
I hold a grudge that we had to make that trade and give up those picks because of him. Um, but if you want to go positive route, the most positive game is definitely going to be a preseason game. Was the coming out party for Mr. Victor Cruz, where he just lit up the Jets defense. And as a preseason, you don't think of a preseason as something to be excited about. But, those who know the history of Victor Cruz, obviously he got injured that year, had to sit out, came back the next year, and came out of nowhere and became just, Pro Bowl caliber receiver. But us Giant fans, we all saw it that year before against the Jets, where he just lit that defense up. In fact, if I remember correctly, I saw an interview with Rex Ryan later on where he said he remembered after that game keeping an eye out to see it because of the injury the Giants tried to waive him so they can pick him up and put him in a Jets uniform the following year. So, that was definitely a nice game to see.
yeah, exactly. And of course, what we're talking about for the rivalry between Giants versus Jets, I know because there are some critical games because they just met in 1980 during the final game of the regular season. So the Jets had 7-7-1 record. They just had lose for the host for the player with the commission was banished. But the Giants were continuing like a playoff spot to the victory for the spot for the division title. And ultra about it because they just saw for the Jets set quarterback Phil Simms 8 times. And that victory for the Jets, they just eliminated Giants and they gave it a many respect about it. But we just really know about it because there's so many players at the Giants who define a whole new generation. Because if you see Eli Manning winning 2 Super Bowls at 2007 and 2011, of course they got Victor Cruz, Odell Beckham Jr. Also, they got a Saquon Barkley. I mean, they just define players for the rivalry and drifting a hole for the generation. But this time, it's something incredible because the 2011, if we remember about it, because that was before Christmas. That was before Christmas, and Eli Manning to Victor Cruz, they just gave like the first lead, and wow, the running back Brandon Jacobs, they just have for the second. I say it's time to shut it off, and they just have it at the 10th of the post game because remember about the game of before the Christmas that I was like, wow. And the kicker last chance that I called up for the Jets to turn the point and the surprise for the Super Bowl. Despite for described for the lose section because they just crowd the rivals for the play against the direction and they just congratulated because that rivalry it became so much important for the New York sports, including for this one. And I think this year is gonna completely different because right now they got Tyrod Taylor and they got Zach Wilson for the quarterback because I know exactly how to the point that the far how to go for the level right now because the quarterback needs to feed up with the right receiver and of course for the special teams. It all depends for the defense and the offense for both teams. They're struggling with a lot of things going out for the mid of the season.
Yeah, this is definitely not the game I think anybody anticipated at the beginning of the season. We expected to see, Aaron Rodgers battling it out against Daniel Jones. We expected to see both teams being, playoff caliber teams. And yeah, instead you get Tyrod Taylor and Zach Wilson, and you get a team that's 2-5 and a team that's a 500 team. I mean, you're not getting the matchup you were anticipating. That's for sure before the season started. But I still think it's actually going to be a pretty good matchup because a the arena is going to be packed with fans of both sides. I mean, yes, it's a home game for the Giants, but I'm telling you right now, you're going to see a ton of green in that stadium as well. You're going to see an old school football game. What I mean by that is it's going to be low scoring. There's going to be a lot of heavy hitting. Those who watched that preseason game this year between the Jets and Giants, there was a few scuffles. There was a few things going on over there, and not things you expect at all in a preseason game. So imagine now when the game actually matters. There's going to be some fights in this game. I have a feeling. I feel it's going to be that kind of game where it's going to be a rough, old school, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball kind of game. At least in the Giants' perspective, the Jets for some reason just pass the ball nonstop. I'm still trying to figure that out. When I did all of my research for them this week, I mean the Jets. I don't know if you're aware of this. The Jets are throwing at 60.06% of their plays.
Yeah.
That eighth most in the entire NFL. Could you imagine having Zach Wilson as your quarterback and saying, you know, we should throw the ball as much as possible? I just don't get that. I mean, especially, you know, when you got Hall there, who's averaging 6.5 yards per carry as a running back. Like, why are you not running the ball more often? And what's worse is they're splitting his carries with Dalvin Cook, who's done absolutely nothing all year. So, wonder why that offense is struggling.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And of course, the last question that we're talking about between New York Giants versus New York Jets. So, what can you tell us about 3 things that are most involved for the game between Giants versus Jets? They're gonna be like so many feats that are about for the quarterback Tyron Taylor, for the wide receivers. It's gonna be like the defense, and it's gonna be like the mentality of the coach Brian DeBoll. So, tell me about 3 things that why Giants could win in a crucial moment against New York Jets.
Yeah, I mean, they'll win. I think this. I have them winning this game. I really do. And I think that the big reason is going to be that they're going to run a offense that plays to the weaknesses of this Jets defense. They're going to run it down their throat. Saquon's going to be used quite often. Like I said, Tyrod Taylor also will get his runs in as well. I think you're going to see, like I said, them not throwing as much to the wide receivers, which they're trying to avoid guys like Sauce Gardner and the great, you know, corners they have on this Jets team. I think the Giants defense has been playing much better the last couple of weeks. Kayvon Thibodeau, while he's still has some issues in run stopping and setting the edge and some of that kind of stuff, it takes some time to learn in the NFL. You know, sometimes we forget he's a young player, but he's been a beast in pass coverage the last couple of weeks here. So if it wasn't for him, we basically have no sacks to the team. He's been like more than half the sacks the Giants have so far this year. You know, I expect another good game as far as that they're going to get to Wilson. The Jets offensive line also has some issues as well, injury wise, not to the extent that the Giants have, but you know, they're not playing so well overall. They're giving up sacks at 9.85% of the pass attempts. That's 28th in the league overall. So it's another team that has trouble protecting the quarterback. And if you want to get a young quarterback who may not be the most talented in the world to make mistakes, guess what? Make him hear footsteps. That's what he's going to make the mistakes at that point. So the third one I would just say is, I think overall, while it may not show in the record, I do still think the Giants are the better team overall. Now, if Aaron Rodgers was in there, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah, Jets are the more talented team on paper when Aaron Rodgers is in there. But if you take out the quarterbacks, go with the backup quarterbacks, and look at those rosters, the Giants have much more well-rounded offensive weapons than the Jets do, who pretty much primarily, you know, count on 3 guys to catch the ball, and Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, and Tyler Conklin, their tight end. If you go past that, there's not much, you know, passes being caught really between the 3. Whereas the Giants are stacked at the skill positions. So I think that's what it boils down to. The Giants will have a better game plan to play against their weaknesses. They'll play smart. They'll get to the quarterback. And overall, the fact that they have some better talent at some key positions is going to come out and shine.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And of course, it's been like a great episode of this adventure right now because this is Rafucho's Corner, where we're talking about of the some of the incredible points and the topics that we're talking about in sports, entertainment, and of course, Drew, last thoughts and before I have to close it down for the stream because this Giants versus Jets game is gonna be like really excited for all these New York sports fans out there. So give me your last thoughts and the social media. Where could we find you on the social media?
Yeah, appreciate it, man. So yeah, last thoughts I would just say is anybody who likes football just in general, anytime you get two teams that the offenses aren't the best and the defenses are very good, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a good close game because neither team's going to outscore the other team so much that the game's going to be out of hand in the fourth quarter or anything like that. So if you want a good, solid, old school football game, guys, watch this Jets and Giants rivalry here coming up because that's going to be a good game overall. As far as where to find us there, I'm half of the show, Two Giant Goofballs podcast there. We're on pretty much everywhere. So whenever we stream, which we stream everything live as soon as the game is over, we stream Monday night, 9 p.m. We stream 8 p.m. on Monday. We stream 9 p.m. on Wednesday. We do another show Thursday at 8 p.m. And so it's 4 times a week we're up to now at this point, giving you guys previews of each game, reactions to each game, giving picks for each week for every single game in the NFL, and giving quick recaps of all the games every week as well. So we try to run the gamut NFL wise for everybody there, obviously focusing on the Giants. So we're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. We're on every single audio podcast platform, pretty much known to man, whether it be Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Google, which I know is kind of going away soon to just be YouTube. But yeah, like I said, pretty much everywhere you can think of possibly, we are there. And website coming soon as well. So
There you go, folks. And of course, my name is Rafael Chacín. As known as Capitán Rafucho. And it's been like an amazing episode of Rafucho's Corner with Drew, part of the Two Giant Goofballs podcast. You can see like detailing all about the analysis and the news about what's going to happen with the New York Giants, the week peaks and everything. So make sure to subscribe to Drew and Rob for the Two Giant Goofball podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everything. And you can subscribe me as Rafael Chacín on YouTube as Rafael Chacín. And of course, you can follow me on social media like Twitter, Instagram at Capitán Rafucho. You can see like the news, everything for videos and reactions. And it's been like another episode of Rafucho's Corner with Rafael Chacín and Drew for the Two Giant Goofball podcast before the game between New York Giants versus New York Jets, which is unbelievable battle for the New York sports fans, a battle for the Big Apple. So have a good one, folks. Have a great night. And of course, peace out.